So, what if you could build a personalized playbook for your social life? I'm not talking about just a bunch of random tips, but a complete top-down strategy that actually starts with you. Well, today we're going to break down that exact system. Let's dive in. All right, first things first, what are we even talking about here? You've probably heard the word Rizz thrown around. Look, it's really just modern slang, short for charisma. It's, the skill of charming a potential partner. Simple as that. Okay, now that we're all on the same page, let's get into the real strategy behind it. And this, right here, is where so much advice just completely misses the mark. Most of it is what you'd call bottom-up. It's just this chaotic mess of pickup lines and random tactics, right? There's no real strategy. But the top-down approach, it flips that whole idea on its head. It's a logical system, and it doesn't start with some clever line you memorized. Nope, it starts with the most important person in the entire equation, you. Okay, so here's our game plan for building this playbook. First, we're going to cover the 5 foundational questions that really define your core strategy. After that, we'll use those answers to figure out the right venue. Then we'll calibrate your approach, and finally, we'll drill all the way down to the specific methods and tactics. It's a step-by-step process. All right, let's jump into our first section. The core idea here is simple but absolutely crucial. A successful social strategy just can't be a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. It has to, and I mean has to, flow directly from who you are. I want you to picture it like a funnel, okay? At the very top, the widest part, that's the big abstract stuff, your own identity, who you are. Then, as we move down that funnel, each layer gets more and more specific, more concrete. We go from you to your environment, to your strategy, to your methods, until, bam, you get to the very bottom, the most granular level, the specific tactics you're actually going to use. And that brings us right to the top of that funnel. And honestly, this is the most critical layer of the whole thing. It all starts by asking yourself 5 foundational questions. This is how you build your personal strategy from the ground up. Now, these are the 5 non-negotiables. Think of them as your starting point. First, just logistics. Where do I live? Then it gets way more personal. Who am I? And what kind of relationship am I actually looking for? See, once you know that, then you can define who you're looking for, which leads you logically to that final crucial question. Okay, where is she? Where can I actually find this person? And let's be super clear about this. That second question, who am I? That's the anchor for absolutely everything else. We're not just talking about your hobbies here. No, this demands a really honest look at your external reality, your age, your job, what you look like, and also your internal world, your goals, your dreams. The entire system hinges on getting this part right. It's all about that self-awareness. Okay, so once you've answered those questions, and I mean honestly answered them, you're ready for the next piece of the puzzle, finding your venue. This is the moment where your internal strategy finally steps out into the real world. Let's make this a little more concrete, right? We'll use a case study. So picture this guy. He's a 45-year-old divorced father. By day, he's an accountant, but his real passion is art history. Now, he's looking for a younger, creative woman, let's say somewhere between 18 and 27. So the question is, logically, where might she be? Well, a college campus seems like a possibility. And hey, so does an art museum. But hang on, here's the crucial filter. Sure, you might find his target demographic on a college campus. But think about it. Does a 45-year-old who isn't a student or a professor belong there? It just feels kind of out of place, doesn't it? Now contrast that with the Museum of Modern Art. He's surrounded by something he's genuinely passionate about. He's not just there to meet someone, he's completely in his element. He fits. He belongs. And this brings us to our first really big concept, congruence. What is it? It's that feeling of looking and acting like you totally belong in a certain place. See, the goal isn't just to find them. The real goal is to find the venue where you feel completely at home. For our guy in the case study, that place is the art museum, no question. Okay, so we've found the right place. We have congruence, but that's only half the battle. Now we have to calibrate our strategy, because it's not just about where you are, it's all about how you act once you get there. And that leads us perfectly into our second key concept, social calibration. To put it simply, it means your actions have to make sense for the place you're in. I mean, you wouldn't act the same way in a quiet library as you would in a loud nightclub, right? Of course not. You have to adapt. So let's go back to our art museum. What's the vibe there? It's quiet, right? People are observant, they're thoughtful. So if you went in there with a super loud, overly direct approach, it would be completely out of place. It would not be socially calibrated. And let's be honest, it would crash and burn immediately. You see how this works? The venue literally dictates the strategy. You can't just pick one out of a hat. For a quiet, observant place like a museum, a loud, direct approach is just off the table. The only choice that's logically calibrated, the only one that makes sense, is something more subtle. In this case, an indirect, cold approach. And this idea really gets to the heart of what social calibration is all about. It's summed up perfectly in this quote: "Good game doesn't look like game." What does that mean? It means the goal is for your interaction to feel so natural, so perfectly calibrated to the environment that it doesn't even feel like a move. It just feels like a normal, pleasant human interaction. That's it. So here we are, at the bottom of our funnel. We're about to turn all this high-level strategy into actual, concrete action. This is the part where we figure out not just what we're going to do, but exactly how we're going to do it. And the logic just keeps flowing right on down. Think of your strategy, in our case, the indirect approach, as the destination on your GPS. The method, then, is the specific car you choose to drive to get there. It's a pre-built system, a vehicle, designed to execute that exact strategy. For instance, if your strategy is an indirect cold approach, that points you towards established methods that were built for exactly that situation. A classic example is the mystery method, which is all about storytelling and social dynamics. The point is, you're not starting from scratch here. You're just picking the right tool for the job that you've already so carefully defined. And finally, we get to the most granular level of all. The method you pick then gives you the specific tactics, the actual nitty-gritty things you'll say and do. Now, these tactics pretty much fall into two buckets. You've got outer game, which is all the external stuff, how you approach, the words you use, your body language, all that. And then you have inner game, which is all the internal work. Your mindset, your confidence, your core beliefs. A really good method will give you a complete toolkit that covers both. So let's just do a quick recap of the entire top-down flow using our case study. You see how it works? It all started with you, right? Answering those 5 key questions. That led to a congruent venue, the museum. The museum then required a calibrated strategy, the indirect approach. That strategy pointed us to a specific method, like the mystery method. And finally, that method gave us the tactics, the openers, the routines, the whole shebang. Every single step follows perfectly and logically from the one before it. Look, at the end of the day, this isn't really just a playbook for dating. It's a framework for making sure your actions are an authentic expression of who you really are. So I'll leave you with this question. If you were to start building your own personal playbook right now, what's the first honest answer you'd give to that big foundational question? Who am I?